Thank you, Valerie, so much. And also want to acknowledge our co-sponsors. So we have two co-sponsors, and Leslie Bowie is here with OBDEC, the Louisiana Parish Democratic Executive Committee. She's the chairperson. Thank you, Leslie. And also co-sponsoring is Justice and Beyond. Reverend Manning is here from Justice and Beyond. And also a very special thanks for hosting this meeting, actually. They're through their great operation of, they have this down, how to do these Zoom meetings. So thank you so much, Reverend Manning. I think you wanted to make a few remarks.
Yes, Reverend Manning's supposed to be welcome everybody in from the Just
I think he's muted.
Oh, can you hear me now? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we can. Yes, thank you.
Again,
thank you, Valerie.
Thank you, Esther.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. It's so good to be able to co-host this and co-sponsor this with OPDEC and with IWO. We none of us, I think, are underestimating the impact and the importance of getting out the vote. So with no further ado, Esther, if it's all right, if I just pray and we can go into it. God, we give you thanks and praise for the opportunity to gather here together in this space on tonight. We ask that you would give us peace as we unite in this moment, understanding that we are on the same page, that we are about the same mission, that we have the same desire, and that is to increase voter turnout, to activate every person who has been given the privilege that so many have fought for to be able to vote. We ask especially, God, for our young people, that you would show us how to be able to ignite them to be able to get there. And God, we ask that you would give us the ability to be able to remove every barrier that is getting in the way and be able to prevent those who are trying to subdue and subjugate people and get in the way of voter rights, that you would help us to be able to overturn that and overcome that in a meaningful way. So God, we ask that you be in the midst of this conversation and that we would believe that all things are possible. We ask this in the name of Almighty God, and I ask it in the name of my Savior, Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Welcome, everybody.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Manning. So sort of two parts for today. One is we are going to have, I want to introduce Deborah Salvador from ENVV, and ENVV is Engaging New Voices and Voters. It is a nonpartisan coalition of our old friends at the League of Women Voters and the National Council of Jewish Women, New Orleans. And Deborah's not only been doing on the ground registering folks in a lot of different places for many years, she also has collected all the information about these new laws that we need to know about. So we all know that laws were passed at the last legislative session that dictate things about voting registration and helping people with their ballots. And we need to know that in order that all of our ballots are, that as many people are registered as possible, and that all of our ballots are valid. So Deborah, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Okay.
Thank you so much for being here and for participating.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming tonight and sharing this. I know that usually what happens with these events is the people who are the most busy with all of these kind of activities are the people who show up. So I am really glad to see you all here. I'm going to share my screen. What I'm going to do is kind of go through the basics, who can vote, and then some logistics around how to register people to vote. What are some of the limitations, some of the things that you have to keep in mind around registering people to vote, and also early voting, absentee voting, lots of different things that I'm going to try to talk about. And I'll ask you I don't know if someone's going to be monitoring the chat or whatever while I'm going through this. But if you do have questions, if you want to post them on the chat, we can try to hopefully get to those too. So we've got three things, we've got three stages that we have going on right now. Right now, we're in that register to vote stage until early October. And then, which I think we have someone from Together New Orleans or Together Louisiana here tonight to talk briefly about pledging to vote, which will kick into full gear, which is already kicking into full gear, but will continue through to voting to the actual November the 5th. And then, of course, voting. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about all those things. So the first thing I want to go through is the basic rules of who can vote, because that question comes up a lot. I know this morning we talked about it. I was at a voter registration event and we had a big discussion about who can vote, especially on some of the exceptions, and things. So of course, you need to be a US citizen. You need to be 17 years old, or actually, if you're 16 years old, you can register if you register in person at the registrar of voters office, but you must be 18 years old to vote, i.e. 18-year-old on November the 5th. So right now, if you know of any place where there are 17-year-olds who will be 18 by November the 5th, they can register even though they're not 18 yet, as long, to enable them to be able to vote in the November 5th election. So that's good to know. And of course, ENVV, the organization, the coalition that I'm working with, has been going out to high schools to target just that type of potential voter. Another exception which can cause some confusion is if you have a felony conviction. For those who are under an order of imprisonment for a felony conviction, they have to wait until 5 years after they're no longer incarcerated to be able to register to vote again. So they lose their right to vote during that time of the incarceration for the felony conviction, and then for 5 years after that. Now, the thing to remember with that, however, it is just for felonies. So if someone is in prison isn't convicted of a felony, or has been either not convicted or convicted of something other than a felony, they can still vote. So there are people in prison, in jails right now, who actually still have the right to register and to vote. So that's an important area of constituency and thing to keep in mind also, and also to help those. Also, if these people are on probation or parole, then they need to talk to their parole officers, their probation officers, about when it is exactly that their right is restored, so that they can go ahead and get the necessary paperwork so that they can register to vote. So if anyone is involved with working with imprisoned people or formerly imprisoned people, there are some ways that many of these people could actually be able to vote. The other thing, of course, if you're under a judgment for mental incompetence or whatever, or suspension of voting rights, you would not be able to vote. You have to reside in the state or parish where you seek to register. However, another important thing is, and this is related to the providing some type of identification, proof of identification. If you reside in the state of the parish and you can show that that you actually are residing there in the state or in which parish, then you can still register, even if you don't necessarily have like a Louisiana driver's license or a state ID. The first one is either a driver's license or a state ID. If not, if they can use their social security number to register to vote, because there are some people who live in the state, they're actually a resident of the state, but for whatever reason, they have not changed, say, their driver's license or whatever, another state for various reasons, they can still vote and they will still be able to vote. I work as a poll worker also, and we can accept as an identification at the day of the poll, we can accept an out-of-state driver's license, for example, as proof of your registration, as long as you're on the rolls. You have to be registered at least 20 days prior to an election if you're or 30 days if you're going to be registering in person or by mail. So you've got a little bit longer to register if you use the online registration system. And that is pretty easy to do with the Go Vote online. I'm going to see here if I can get to that. Yeah. Oops. It's not letting me go to that right now. Okay. So let me go back to PowerPoint. Okay. All right, but the Go Vote is an app that you can get on your phone. You can either go to Play Store or the iStore, Apple Store, whatever, and download this app. This app basically, Go Vote will flip you right into the Secretary of State's website, where you can go navigate to where you can register to vote. You can check to make sure you are registered to vote. If you are registered to vote, you also want to check. And one other thing that we've been doing when we register people to vote is sometimes when we go to some of these events and people will say, well, I'm registered to vote. It's like you need to check that you are still on the rolls. Legally, I mean, if you haven't voted in 2 federal elections, you can be taken off automatically. Also, if the Secretary of State sends out like a voter registration card or whatever to your address and it gets sent back to them because maybe you moved or maybe it went in the wrong mailbox or whatever and didn't get delivered properly, they have been putting people on the, at the very least on the inactive voter list. So you want to check prior to these final days for registering to vote that you are actually registered. If you are not, you need to go to the online registration system and update your registration, or go to the registrar's office and update your registration to make sure that you are able to vote. So important dates. The important dates here for this next election are here. What we're talking about, if you are going to register to vote in person or by mail, it has to be done by October the 7th, coming up pretty soon. We have just about 2 more weeks. So that has to be in by October the 7th. However, if you vote online, do online registration, you have until October the 15th. So we can still keep doing registration drives even after the 7th up until the 15th, if we can help people register online. Okay. The last day to request a mail-in ballot from the registrar's office is November the 1st, and the deadline to get that ballot in is November the 4th. Okay, so if you're going to do absentee voting, which I'll talk about a little bit in a minute, you have to get that done before the election on these. These are the important dates to remember. Early voting will be from the 18th through the 29th. All of those days, except the 2 Sundays in there, you will have early voting will be available. And I'll show in a minute just the Orleans sites. But one other thing, a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about today, that information is available at the Secretary of State site. It's sos.la.gov. If you go to that site, and on the left-hand side, there are all different kind of buttons to get to all of this various information. And I've just kind of pulled together the highlights of it here. Absentee. So that's our registering people to vote. And then we have absentee voting and early voting prior to voting on election date. So if you, one of the important things to remember that I have highlighted here with absentee voting, if for any of you have ever absentee voted before, for one thing, you have to do this application. And the application, hopefully will come up. This is the application that you would get. This is available online at secretarystate.sos.la.gov. You fill out this application. To do absentee vote, you need to check one of these items: senior citizen, temporarily absent, offshore, nursing home, etc. You have to, check which box applies to you and apply for an absentee ballot. If you're 65 or older, you can actually get it. Some of these other ones, you do it on an election by election basis. If you're 65 or older, you can actually say that, okay, now I'm 65, from now on, just send me an absentee ballot for every election. One of the things that you do when you absentee vote is you sign off on your ballot, and you have to have a witness. One of the new things that is restricting this a little bit is that witness now a witness can only, who is not a family member, can only be a witness on one person's, non-family member's ballot per election, okay? Why is this problematic? Well, this applies in the case of nursing homes or any kind of group home or wherever. Normally, what had been happening there is you have like maybe a nurse's aide or somebody who would go around, several people would fill out their ballots, and that person would witness all of them, okay? That non-family member cannot do that anymore. Okay, so for those kinds of homes like that, if anybody's working with helping those people vote, then we have to think differently about how to do that. One way that I would think that you might want to do it is having an activity at the home where everybody gets together, they fill out their ballots, and then they can do a round robin of signing to witness for each other. That way they're only witnessing for one non-family member. So that's one possible solution. Another possible solution is what's called nursing home absentee voting. And in this case, there's an application. Again, the application is available at sos.la.gov. And this is an application to say, okay, I live in a nursing home. I'm not going to be able to get to the polls or to go do early voting. And if this gets approved, the registrar of voter or somebody from that office will come out to the nursing home and provide paper ballots or some kind of portable voting machine that can be used there. And so that may be another way, another workaround to help residents in these types of group homes or whatever to accomplish their absentee voting. Okay. So then there's early voting, and for this election, early voting goes through October 18th through the 29th. As I said, every day except for the 2 Sundays, and it will be from 8:30 in the morning to 6 o'clock at night. Okay, some of the locations, I just made a copy here. These are just locations for Orleans Parish. But again, if you go to sos.la.gov, you can plug in your parish and you can find out the places in your parish that will be open for early voting. Okay, early voting provides more time for doing the voting than just that Tuesday. So anybody who's got to work on that Tuesday or whatever, this is definitely something that we want to encourage people to do early voting if at all possible, to make sure that they get there so that they don't get to November the 5th, something comes up at the last minute and they're not able to vote. So another thing that when you're registering people to vote, that you might want to encourage them to vote early, or to make sure that they will be able to vote, that they'll be around. If they're not, to make sure that they get in an absentee ballot application in time so that they'd be able to do that. Because we want to cover all of our bases there. We want to register people to vote. We want people to make sure they're registered to vote. We want to make sure that, but then the next really important step is that they vote. Either vote on election day, early voting, or absentee voting, whichever is going to work the best for each person. But so we want to get that information to them as to how they can do it, however, one of those 3 ways to make sure that they can vote. Go vote. This is the QR code if you've got your phone and want to take a snapshot of this, but of course this will all be available. They're recording this, and all these slides will be in the recording, and so you can click a picture from there if you don't have it right now. The Go Vote app is great. It accesses the information on the Secretary of State website. However, it will access it. What the nice thing about it is it accesses it in a way that you can personalize it for you, because you go there, you get on the site, you tell them who you are. It will tell you that you're registered, that you are, an active voter. It will then tell you what your particular ballot looks like. It will tell you where you need to vote. So it gives you all the information that you need to vote. So this is just really a handy way to do it. And also, using that Go Vote app, if you move, If your name change, well, with the name change, you have to send in some documentation, so that's a little bit more. But at any rate, if you change your address or whatever, then you can do that at Go Vote online. And also with the Go Vote, like I said, Go Vote for voter registration, people can do that through October 15th, whereas the paper ballot registration has to be done by October the 7th. So we have another week beyond that for that. The next thing I want to talk a little bit about is inactive voters. This is the case. There's been a lot of talk about this. They went through the rolls, and like I said, one thing where you can be put on an inactive list or actually dropped from being registered to vote is if you haven't voted in the last two federal elections. So if you haven't been voting regularly, that you want to check that. You also want to check. You want to check no matter what. I haven't moved in several years, but I checked to see that I was still, and none of my information has changed, but I checked anyway to make sure that I'm still an active voter. But particularly if you have moved or whatever, or even, for example, I live in a condo building where sometimes our mail gets mixed around. So if they sent me a card from the Secretary of State and that card got put in somebody else's box and never got sent to me and got sent back, they could put me on the inactive list, whatever, just because of an error like that. So please, when you're doing for any of you doing work anywhere with anybody who says, oh, I'm registered, I'm good, tell them, okay, let's check your registration to make sure that you really are, because, different things happen, or you lose track, people lose track, don't change their address every place, and can fall through the cracks like that. And you don't want to wait. While you can go on election day and they say, okay, you can do a provisional ballot, you really don't want to do a provisional ballot because the chances of that potentially getting thrown out are good for various reasons. So I don't, we hope as poll workers, we don't really we hope people don't have to do provisional ballots, because it's kind of like almost like could be a false promise of that your vote's getting counted. So you really want to get those, make sure people know about that ahead of time. So voter registration drives, most of us on this call have been or want to be involved in that. There are resources online to guide you along the way. There is this voter registration drive best practices, which is also accessed through sosla.gov, which and I will not go through all of this. You'll want to go through this. You want to make sure that people are putting their correct information when you get a paper application, or when you do it, help someone to do it online. Make sure that they've filled out the information properly, that they have their valid ID. One thing that I will tell you that's a tricky question if they register online. For those who register online, they've got to have either a Louisiana driver's license or an ID or a Louisiana ID, because one of the items that's asked for is what's called a little audit code. And probably most of us don't even realize we have an audit code on our driver's license or our ID. And it is, if you look at your driver's license right next to your eye color, is a little audit code. It's a 4-digit audit code. And you will need to put that in if you're registering online. So to register online, that will be limited to people who have a Louisiana driver's license or a Louisiana ID, because they will be the ones who will have that audit code. So you want to make sure that they have everything filled out, that they sign it. Oops. Sorry. And you also another thing, if you are doing paper ballots, this is another big thing that came in with this new law that was enacted. And starting August 1st, if you're going to do paper registration, every time you request the forms from the Secretary of State, then you have to fill out a form saying, and let me see if I can get that. I'm going to try to get back to that form. Here it is. Oh, shoot. Oh, messed it up. Anyway, it's a form to fill out, and I thought I had it on here. Oh, shoot. Look here for the items and voter registration drives. Here. It's the. There is the form. Click here to fill it. Not here it is. This is the new form for to fill out when you ask for paper registration forms. You don't have to do this per registration drive, even though it's unclear. The law is really not clear as to whether that's the case or not, but there is no place on this form to put a date for when you're going to do a registration drive. And from what we can get from contacting people at the Secretary of State and the Register of Voters office is that whenever you request forms, you have to fill one of those out because it's asking you how many paper forms that you're filling. You do
Deborah,
have to.
I don't
Excuse
see
me?
that form. Do you,
Oh, you don't see it?
I'm
Okay,
not seeing it.
Okay, let me stop share and start again. Let's see. There you go. Seeing it now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, I switched off for the other. Yeah. The one bad thing about Zoom is when you switch between applications, you don't always, it doesn't switch. So it's a really pretty simple form. It's just the idea that you need to fill this out and send this in it has to be emailed to outreach@sos.la.gov. Okay, and then they will send you the form. So they're just keeping track of how many paper forms people are requesting to do on paper. If you are just helping people to register online, you do not have to worry about this at all. It is just strictly directed to getting paper registration forms. Okay. Now, not sure whether, they just forgot that people can register online or whether this was directed, with paper forms allow for us to do things like people who aren't comfortable with computers, don't have access to computers. Also, I do registration at the new citizens and naturalization ceremonies, and it's just impractical for us to help people do it on the computer there. The paper forms is the way to go. So they just make it a little bit extra step for those kind of people. But anyway, it is what it is. And so if you're going to do voter registration drives, you just need, if you're going to get forms, you need to make sure you fill out this form to be able
You
to
have
get.
to be accountable for forms that don't get filled out. Do you have to turn empty forms back in?
No. No. There's nothing there for that. This is an interesting thing. Yeah, it's a couple of things about this. I guess it's supposed to be some kind of control on, using paper registration forms, but there is nothing that you have to account for that, oh, okay, I requested 100 forms and I only got, 25 completed ones back. What happened to the other 75? There's no way to account for that. So, and I think it's more just to have you know that what your responsibilities are for doing voter registration drives, because there's several things that you have to initial in each line to these statements, that you understand that it's a crime to reproduce those forms. It's a crime for the other thing that you cannot do when you ask for voter registration, which you can do in some other states. In some states, if you're doing a voter registration drive, you can actually ask and say, okay, you filled out a form, and then I'm going to keep a separate list of everybody who filled out forms today, because I'm going to give them a call before the election to remind them to vote. And that is actually being done in some other states, but we cannot do that in this state. We are not allowed to collect any information other than just, we can collect, like when I work with ENVB and we register voters, we can collect the forms and we can bring them down to the registrar's office, but we cannot collect any information separately about these people to say, have a list where we can call them back to make sure that to remind them to vote. And so I think these are the kind of things that they're trying to remind you with this form, is, I guess, where they're going with it. I'm going to, let's see, go back. All right. Let me go back here. I think that was it. So basically, it's our vote is our power. And so we need to do it. Do we have any, so I'll, those are the highlights, but if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take questions.
Deborah, I had a question.
Okay.
So when you're helping people register, you can use your own computer, like you can take your laptop somewhere and they can register on your laptop. Is that right? They don't necessarily have to
Yeah.
use their own.
Yeah, you can do it on your laptop if you have, if you have that available. In fact, we were doing that this morning. Someone had their iPad, and they could pull it up there to do registration. And that's a helpful way, because then you don't have to worry about that form filling out and stuff. And it's probably, it's probably a good idea if you could do that. If you're in a location where you can bring your computer, yeah, that's perfectly fine. There's no restriction.
So is it still illegal to take a voter's name and contact information down if it is?
Yeah, you
even if
can't,
they're
you're not supposed to be
voting,
asking for the
even
information.
if it's electronic. Okay.
Yeah, and that's a state by state difference, because like I said, in some states, because I know when we have, when I've been on some webcasts with the League of Women Voters nationally, in some other states, they're actually doing that when they register people, then they're also keeping a list so they can go back and use that to remind people to vote, because the problem is we've got, a lot of people, we can get people registered, but the big thing then next is getting them to actually vote. But so that's one thing that we cannot do, so.
Okay, Deborah, we have a Julie Harris. She have a question. You can ask your question, Julie.
Yeah, I want to emphasize how important it is for everyone to look themselves up on that website, on the Secretary of State's website, and look up for your status. It's right there when you put your information in. There's a row of information about you, and at the end it says status, active, inactive. There may be a third case if they've actually kicked you off. I don't know. But the thing is, if and you mentioned, Deborah, all the possible ways, no matter how many times you voted, no matter how many years you've been registered, there's all kinds of ways that something could screw up, because they, by law, send out these canvassing postcards in waves periodically. And if one doesn't get to you, and we have a very dysfunctional post office in this state and in this country right now. So if one doesn't get to you, you have no idea. And so you're going to be surprised and upset. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't tell people, oh, if you're inactive, don't vote because it won't count and you're now screwed. No, then you just need to cure it. You need to cure it by talking to the registrar, by going down there. But if you don't have the time, you can go online and try and figure that out, or you can call them and, and get it cleared by possibly a phone call. But the main thing is it depends how cooperative that registrar in your parish is. Maybe a very cooperative registrar that will help you cure it on the phone, but it may not be. So you've got to figure out what that is and help your family members do that. It is so important to get that status straight. And then while you're on that website, you can look up your ballot. So, it's not just the president and the vice president on the ballot. We've got some local important things to vote for. And some people are going to be voting in a new congressional district. So there's some interesting things that you need to learn when you get on that website. Thanks. And thanks for this presentation, Deborah.
Yeah, and Go Vote is a really good place to go there. Just this morning when we were, working at a pop-up for voter registration, and we were talking about that, and we went to Go Vote, and you've got, the nice thing is you look yourself up, you can make sure that you're on. If you're not, we had a person come in who had voted, but I guess he hadn't voted in a while. And so he had to re-register, basically. He wasn't on the rolls. He wasn't on the inactive list. So he had to re-register, but we could do that through Go Vote. And also then after you get registered, then you can see everything. You can look at your whole ballot. And there are, as Julie said, we've got some judgeships, and we also have some amendments, one at the state level and two at the Orleans Parish level amendments. And so you want to just read what those are about, and they have a little blurb about them on the Go Vote site, on the, either going to the sos.la.gov or just get to it through Go Vote. You can find out ahead of time so you can be ready to go.
Great. Thank you so
So-
much.
Okay,
Leslie,
thank
did you have a
you.
question?
Esther, we have Miss Leslie. Oh yeah, okay, Miss
Leslie.
Leslie Bowie. So I'm sorry, Esther. I
Yeah,
didn't know you was
can
doing
you
the
hear
chat
me?
too. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me? Yeah, I wanted to kind of build on what Julie
Yes.
was saying. And that's actually one of the strategies that we use to register voters. Because our experience has been, if you ask an adult, are you registered to vote? Everybody says yes. I don't care whether they're registered or not. Everybody, it's almost like they don't want to admit that they're not registered and they're, an adult. So we kind of changed that, and instead of asking if you're registered, we say, "Oh, they've been purging voters. Would you mind if we check your voter registration?" And that way, it kind of takes them off the hook, and they will allow us to check. And in many instances, they're not registered, and I don't know if they've been removed or if they never registered in the first place, but it's something that works. So, that's kind of one of the things that we use now. The only other thing, I was kind of going through my little list as great presentation, Deborah. Everything that I wanted to make sure was covered, you've covered. There's only one thing, when you do the paper forms, the state they don't really check to see if you used them all. But once you fill out a paper form, you do have a deadline to turn it in.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You have to do within 30 days. Yeah, I did. I forgot about that. Yeah, I forgot to mention that. You've got 30 days from the date that they complete it to turn it in.
Yeah, so that's the only thing. So hopefully we'll
Yeah.
get them in because, we're running out of time. We're like at 49 days today to the
Right.
election, and those days are coming closely. But that was all I had. Thank you.
And less than that for getting people registered, because registering for the paper ballots is in 2 weeks. So yeah, I've got a stack of them sitting in my house. I have to bring that were done last week. I have to bring them in. Yeah.
So thanks again, Deborah. That was great. That was very informative. And any more questions we can kind of save to the end. The next part we were going to have folks, and Leslie, since you're up in center, maybe you could go next and talk about what your group, what your organization is doing to register and to get out the vote, and how we as individuals can help, how we can sign up and be there and help. So
Right.
do you want to
I'd
talk about
be happy to
OPDEC?
talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, OPDEC, well, let me just describe OPDEC a little bit for anybody who's not familiar. At the March election, March 23rd, when you went to the polls to vote, there was this long list of like 40 or 50 people, and it said, select 14. Okay, well, the 14 that's selected in each council district has 14 Democratic Executive Committee members. It's 70 in total. So I was one of the 14 that was elected in my District D. And then I had the privilege of being elected chair of OPDEC at our April meeting. So in the past 6 months, we have almost a new team of OPDEC members, all Democrats, 14 from each district. So we immediately started thinking about how we could become more active in doing things, and also to kind of get our name out there that, hey, we're here to help. So instead of like reinventing the wheel, we thought a good approach would be to go ahead and just join other groups that are doing things. So instead of OPDEC hosting a voter registration drive, we looked to see who else was doing voter registration drives, and we showed up to help those individuals. So we've been on college campuses. We've had several drives at churches, at schools. We've gone to we've been on Xavier's campus, Suno's campus. We're connected with the young Democrats from Loyola and Tulane. We haven't been on Dillard's campus yet, but that's going to be our next approach, is to try to get Dillard and Delgado. So that's basically what we've been doing. We did hold the biggest events we held was the one a couple of weeks ago on Suno's campus, where we were unveiling Project 2025. We wanted everybody to really understand the impact of that project and what it has on education, on reproductive rights and freedom, on LGBTQ rights and make sure that those rights aren't taken away. So we had a panel of individuals who spoke to that, and it was very well attended. We had almost 200 individuals in the room to learn about that event, to learn about those topics. So that's what we've been doing. And we've been going, in fact, this Saturday, I think we got one of our events canceled because of the storm. But we were going out to New Orleans East. One good thing about this group of OBDEC chairs, we have a chair in every district. So we have someone on the West Bank, someone in, district A, B, C, D, and E, who are spearheading activities in their districts. And we also have some new committees on OBDEC as well. One of it being our, we call it kind of the data analysis team. So they're looking at voter turnout right now as we speak in every district and ward and precinct to try to understand where the opportunities are. So when it's time for OBDEC to start reaching out into those particular wards and precincts, we'll know exactly where to go, where the turnout is low. We're going into the neighborhood associations. Every district has some neighborhood associations. So we're going to them. We're going to churches. We're going to schools, high schools to register. And through some activities we've been involved with Shawan Bernard, we're going to be trying to continue to provide field trips for all the high school seniors to get on buses, take them down as a field trip down to, their early voting, so that not only do we have the high school seniors that are eligible to registered, we actually want to take them down to vote so that that can be their first experience in voting in a presidential election in most cases. Some of the other things that we're doing is right now, I'll tell you what we're working on right now. And again, this is through, in fact, she's a member of IWO. She may be on the call. Lois Jones and Shawan Bernard. Is we're developing a strategy. So what's going to be our strategy on election day to get out the vote? What are we going to be doing? Well, a couple of things we want to do is kind of getting out in the streets, waving signs at the intersections, generating energy and excitement. But the other thing is really understanding the data. And as I mentioned, understanding which wards and precincts aren't voting. Okay, so we've got, I think it's 119 voting locations where we are, 348 wards and precincts vote. So in that 119 locations, we're trying to get volunteers and identify volunteers, OBDEC members and others that would be responsible for just getting those voter numbers to us so that throughout the day on election day, say, for example, if the polls open at 8, say maybe at 11 would be the first count. Send those numbers in to us so we know where to start making phone calls and trying to get the vote out. In the governor's race, and I'll just give you this as an example, if I can find my numbers. In Orleans Parish, Sean Wilson actually won Orleans Parish. I think he got like 71% of the vote in Orleans Parish. But of that 71%, that was only 27% of the actual voters. So if you think about it, if you line up 100 voters and take 27 and say, these are the only ones that can vote, all those voters, 71% of it voted for Sean Wilson, but the turnout it wasn't enough. It was just too low. So that's our big thing now. We're running out of time to register voters. What we really want to do now is understand and try to get people to the polls. We're going to be watching those numbers. So anyone who's interested in volunteering to help us with this effort, I'll go ahead and make sure that you get my email address and or phone number so that you can reach out to us, because we're gonna be needing people on that day to get the vote out and to wave signs in the intersection as well. So anything that you want to do to help, we would certainly appreciate it. And particularly on the West Bank, because our West Bank voters, they turn out. We're real proud of our West Bank voters. We're proud of our seniors. We've got some pockets of individuals who really do a great job. And, I just want to thank them and recognize them. And also all the members of OBDEC who have helped to make us be as effective as we can be thus far. So that was all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leslie. That was really helpful. And you're going to put your contact information in the chat so people can reach you and volunteer? Okay. And Deborah, I think I'm going to go back to you and just
Okay.
for you to give us direct information about how we can get involved with ENVV. And I know that it's easy to do, right? You can just, I don't know if we need a
Yep.
training, but yes, if you can,
Yeah.
because
I'm
I
gonna
think you need more volunteers. Is that correct?
Yes, we do. We always need volunteers, and I'm going to go to, let me see. In fact, instead of sharing this screen, I am going to go to, I want to go to our registration site. I will tell you, okay, while I'm doing that, ENVV is Engaging New Voices and Voters, which is a coalition of League of Women Voters and National Council of Jewish Women. And so we have a group of people from both organizations, and anybody from any, you don't have to belong to either of those organizations to be a volunteer. What I'm showing up here on the screen right now is our site for registering to volunteer for various events that we do. The main event that we do all the time, regardless of elections, is to register new citizens to vote who after they have gone through the naturalization ceremonies. So that we do on a weekly basis. But we're also doing a whole lot of different voter registration pop-ups around town coming up over the next several weeks. And so if we look at the screen, you can see today was one at the library at UNO, Ben Franklin High School, NOCA. And so you have a place here, you go here and you can sign up for those events. It gives you the time and the dates and where they are. You can see Grace at Greenhouse. We've got the USCIS is the naturalization ceremonies, but you see we've got a whole lot of things going on. De La Salle, high schools, various events around town, Tipitinas, just this list goes on and on. And so what we need is more volunteers because we have a core of volunteers who come out over, and some of these names you'll see over and over on this list. And of course, everybody can just do so much. And so we really need more people to sign up for these events. So I will put that in the chat, and also that will be on the it will be in the recording for this also. And we can also probably send this out when we send out something about the recording, whatever. But this is, it's a great activity. These are fun. A couple of people I was with today for voter registration. It's a gratifying event to do it, and it's not too hard. You just help people to vote. They're happy to have you help them to be able to vote. And so it's really kind of, it's a fun volunteer opportunity, and you get to know your other volunteers who you're working with, which is also a great experience in itself. So anybody who has, and all you have to do is just a couple of hours here or there. You can see 9 to 10:30. We're not talking about really big time commitments for any of these events. It's just a matter of being there. We do have trainings that we do from time to time to get people familiar with how to actually, just about questions like what I answered. And the training basically is very similar to what I did in my presentation just now, to give information about what you need to know to answer the questions for people to vote, to register to vote, and various questions that come up during that time. So if you so you can always, in fact, I should put my address out too, in case anybody, my email address, so that if anybody has any questions about wanting to do it and where to get some training or whatever, that will be available also. But we've got lots of opportunities coming up all over town, particularly up until November the 5th. And then throughout the year, we have our regular voter registration events that we do at the naturalization ceremonies. So I'll have them send out this information that this site address, and then also my email for anybody who wants to ask questions, talk about what to do and where to do it.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Deborah. That's so helpful. And even if we haven't had the training, we can maybe pair up with someone who a more experienced
Yeah, if
person.
you're paired up, you hopefully, usually we try to make sure Sylvia Finger, who is with NCJW, I'm kind of the lead person, and Sylvia's kind of like the NCJW person and stuff. But yes, we usually try to make sure that there's at least one person who's an experienced person that signed up. In every one of our events, we have at least 2, if not 3 or 4 people we want to be signed up, so that if you're a rookie, you'll have somebody there who can kind of show you the ropes of what we do. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm inspired. I'll sign up for a few.
Good.
So we have a few more organizations represented. Melissa Bortnoy is here with 10,000 Women. Melissa, do you want to tell us about your initiatives and how we can get involved?
Well, thanks, Esther. Y'all are terrific. I'm so impressed by the information Deborah shared. That was really perfect. We're doing postcards to women voters in Louisiana from 10,000 women. That the postcards include the data, the dates for voter registration, early voting, election day. All of the information that's been shared has been so timely and spot on. A lot of folks are doing postcards to swing states. And I share Leslie's sort of concern and frustration that we have way too many people in Louisiana that aren't bothering to vote. And so we really wanted to take advantage of the momentum of the presidential election to try and encourage people to get out and vote. And so we're doing, we have already, I think we're at almost 15,000 postcards. And so we're focusing on postcards into the Congressional District 6. That's the new district where Cleo Fields is running. And then we're also doing postcards into the New Orleans metropolitan area. And so we've had a couple of postcard parties in New Orleans with 10,000 women. I don't know if Marianne Mouchat's on this call or not, but Marianne and Julie Nice and others are doing some postcard parties in New Orleans. We're talking with the Lynx and the Mystic crew of Femme Fatale to send their folks out to do postcards targeted towards voters in New Orleans, Jefferson Parish, and the North Shore to try and drive up turnout in the 1st congressional district, which is the Steve Scalise district. And so if you're interested in a postcard party in New Orleans, we've got one scheduled on Friday at Julie Nice's house uptown. We're looking to schedule a few more. I think Marianne Mouchat may be doing one. And then we're working with Sharon Howard to involve the the Femme Fatale crew. And so, I just really feel like we've got to encourage women to vote. And we've also got to create a habit of voting. And so if you're interested in participating in our postcard campaign with 10,000 women, we would love to collaborate with y'all. And I just want to thank Esther and IWO and the League of Women Voters and NCJW. I mean, y'all, it's going to be the women that save the country, and we got to buckle up and try and save Louisiana too. And, I'm just really excited to be in the fight with y'all. So, if you're interested in the postcards, send an email to info@10,000womenla.org. Right now we're at 16,500, and we'd like to send out another 10,000.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. And
yes, ma'am. Thank you, Esther.
And you'll put that in the chat for us.
Yeah, put it in the chat. Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. And Leslie, did you have something else?
Yeah, I wanted to just add, there was a question in the chat if anyone had gotten in touch or had conversations with Sheriff Susan Hudson. regarding the population, her population of residents, whether they would be eligible to vote or not. And I did meet with her last week. And she is working very closely with Dr. Sandra Wilson, who is the Registrar of Voters, to make sure that they do have voting machines there available for anyone who's, in her facility that is eligible to vote, that they do get to vote. I also asked her about registration, because there may be some individuals there who are kind of like in a holding pattern. They're awaiting trial, they haven't been convicted of anything or whatever. If they need to register, I want to ensure that they do have an opportunity to register. So not only did she confirm that that would take place, but we offered our services to come down. If OPDEC needs to, we'll go down and help in any way that we can to make sure that that happens. So, that was a question in the chat that I wanted to speak to. Thank you.
Yeah, great.
Thank you. Anything, Valerie? In the chat?
Let me see. Someone just put something in the chat just then while you was asking. I'm hosting someone announcing hosting a postcard gathering Thursday, September 26th, swing states. I want to say that's
Great.
it.
Great.
Clarice. Yeah.
Clarice, great, thanks. Great, thank you. Are there any other representatives, organizations that are doing voting work? Hattie, did you want to speak?
Good evening, everybody. I'm Hattie Broussard, and I'm representing in this capacity Together Louisiana, which is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization. So I want to be clear that we do not support or endorse candidates, but we are right now running a pledge to vote campaign, which we have done before, because Together Louisiana and Together New Orleans are it's an organization of organizations. And so the power in that is that we have many religious institutions, which are Protestant, Catholic, Jewish, Muslim. We have unions, labor unions. We have civic organizations, environmental organizations, all working together. And the whole idea is that through this work, we can bring our power to bear to change the outcome of situations and influence government in a nonpartisan way. So our strategy regarding Pledge to Vote, which we came up with a couple of years ago, is that, we know that Louisiana is a non-voting state. And so what we're all trying to do is to figure out how do we increase voter turnout. And so we decided that rather than just work as block captains in neighborhoods that we're not familiar with, which we've done before, we decided to work with our own organization's members. Because again, we have over 50 some institutions in the city of New Orleans that are members. And we also are affiliated with other organizations that are not members. So reaching beyond our borders and then also across the state, because there are Together Louisiana chapters in North Louisiana, Alexandria, Baton Rouge, Shreveport, and some of the rural areas as well. So working across borders, we feel like we can get people to say, yes, I will vote, taking the pledge. And then in that process, we will have their contact information. So we plan to follow up with them during early voting and on election day. And what we have found in the past is that through the Pledge to Vote campaign, we were able to increase voter turnout among occasional voters by 54%. So that was significant. And of course, unfortunately, it did not swing the statewide election, but it did make a difference in Shreveport for the sheriff's election. So we do have a history of success. And we think that the broader the effort gets, the more impact it will be able to have. So the opportunity to pledge to vote is still open. And I apologize that I do not have the link available, but there is a QR code on the Together Louisiana website if you would like to sign up your institution. The pledge cards are already available. We had the kickoff last night for the statewide effort. So the cards are available at the Together New Orleans office on South Broad Street. And, you know, you have to put together a campaign team, run the campaign in your organization, and try to get as many of your members to sign up as well as their friends and family. So we're trying to spread this across the state to make an impact. So any questions?
Thank
All
you
right,
so
thank
much, Hattie. That was really helpful. Thanks. Is anybody here from the Power Coalition? By any chance? If not, I'm just going to say a few words about all the volunteer opportunities they have. If you're not on the Power Coalition's mailing list, I would encourage you to sign up. They have a lot of very easy ways to be involved. And I'm just going to mention a couple of them. They have Texting Tuesday. You can go in and be with a group and text voters or potential voters also. They have a really interesting initiative called Souls to the Polls, which is a really fun name. So I would encourage everybody who has a religious or spiritual connection to an organization to talk to your religious leaders about involving your mosque or synagogue or church, even a sangha, so they have a lot to offer with the Souls to the Polls initiative. They have organizing toolkits. They even had some small grants. I'm not sure if those are still available, but definitely think of involving your church community. I love the Power Hour. They say even if you have an hour, sign up and they'll find something for you to do. Another election day thing, and it sounds like Optic is going to do a lot on election day. Another thing that is available for a volunteer is election protection through the Power Coalition and ACLU. And I have done that for 5 years, and only last year did I see a lot, you know, a significant number of problems, at least a half a dozen places. When you drove up to the address that was given as the polling place, there was no sign anywhere of where the actual place to vote was. And a lot of times it was in the back of the building, or in one situation, there was a huge parking lot and the go vote or the vote here sign was at the entrance to the parking lot, and then a huge parking lot and about, I don't know, 6 to 8 buildings, and the building of the actual polling place was not marked. So if anybody wants to join me, I've talked to everybody I can about this. The ACLU, of course, uses the information that the election protection people collect to consider legal action. But I would love to have a group of people that just had some signs that say vote and an arrow. And I'm sure that we can stand on public sidewalks and just guide people to the voting. So contact me. My contact information is in the chat. And then the other thing that the Power Coalition has been doing is doing pop-up voter registration. So if you have a place that you want to target, you can call them and work with them, and they'll give you what you need to do that. And I would love to do one in the new congressional district if anybody wants to join me on that also. Anything else? Anybody? Thank you so much for all the information. Valerie, do you have anything in closing?
No, not at this time. Okay, wait a minute. We have Julia. Julia want to say something.
I was
Harris.
putting some things in the chat, so I hope I didn't miss it. Deborah, you are a poll commissioner. Did anybody talk about the need for people to actually sign up for poll commissioners? And if it's
No,
not
I
too
didn't,
late,
but there definitely is a need. There definitely is a need for poll commissioners. We are always short. I know even where I work, we're going to be short one person who has left town and stuff. So, but there's definitely always a need for poll commissioners. I will tell you, I mean, it's a pretty easy job. It's a long day, but but what you do, you just check to make sure people, check the people in and make sure they get their opportunity to vote. It's a great day. We cheer on any first-time voters who come through, and yeah, again, it's a good day. It's you also get paid $200 for your day. Your day starts early in the morning. It's from the polls open at 6 for these federal elections and goes to 8. But it's a good thing. So if you know anybody who would be interested in being a poll worker, I know that. And again, that's on, if you go to sos.la.gov, you will see a little link up at the very top. It says interested in being a poll worker. Just click the link, and it's really easy to, you put in your application, and Betsy Stoner at the registrar's office will be happy to contact you right away.
it is a real public service. When people come to the polls and get confused or get discouraged, or they have a problem that they don't understand, a very purposefully confusing system, having someone knowledgeable, patient, and friendly will help them, whether they could be helped in the current election to vote or to vote provisionally, and then, make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's crossed. It's a hugely important part of the process that gets overlooked. Now, a lot of you are going to go out on election day and do door knocking and flag waving and all this kind of stuff. That's great. But if you don't do that and you prefer to be there, part of the nonpartisan part of elections, it's really, really important.
Yeah.
Thanks, Julie, for pointing that out.
Okay, yeah, we have
Go ahead.
Lane. We have Lane want to make a comment.
Hi, y'all. I just wanted to point out that I think it's real important to let people know there's so many people who take a defeatist attitude about voting in New Orleans and in Louisiana, if they're Democrats especially. Like, what difference is my vote going to make? And something that I've started talking up with folks that seems to get them a little engaged is the point that if we can show a real significant increase especially in the Democratic voter turnout, that is going to register with the governor and with Baton Rouge, not generally. But number two, there are issues that are on this ballot. They're way down on the ballot. There are issues on this ballot. And if we can show that we have an engaged or much more engaged voter base, we have a much better chance of bringing more issues to the ballot in future, in the next election and the next election. I mean, soon, not just all way off in the distance. So further to that, I just wanted to encourage everybody. I just pulled up my ballot on GoVote. Thanks so much for that link. And it does bring up my ballot, and it shows me not just who's running for president and the other stuff, but what are the issues that are on the ballot. There are some very important issues, and we really need to be pushing those. The New Orleans, especially the New Orleans voting base, is, if it can become more powerful and more engaged, we can make a difference in our parish. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Lane. Thank you, Lane. And also, Esther, I want to ask anyone, do they have any announcements that's going on like this month right here in September, maybe in October, that you want to let the public be engaged in, and it's open to the public, such as, let me be the first one, Miss Esther. I want to announce the New Orleans East Festival that's going on at Joe Brown Park. Will be Saturday. Everybody come and bring your family, your friends, even your foes. Bring everybody, because this will be a very festive festival, very encouraging, empowering, and it's about education. It's about election. It's about families, friends getting together and encouraging one another and giving each other some pointers, some information that will be important to us politically and our community-wise. So this is very important festival that's going on Saturday. Saturday. Bring your chair, your cooler. Saturday. Put it on your calendar. Saturday. This Saturday. So anybody else have any announcement they want to let everybody know?
I think Jody does. Is Jody still here?
I'm still here.
Do you
What
want
am
to announce what you put in the chat?
Well, the Gillespie Center Memorial Community Breakfast is having postcard writing this Sunday, September 22nd, from 2 to 4 p.m. We're in the Rain Memorial United Methodist Church Fellowship Hall. The church is at 3900 St. Charles Avenue, but you can come in through the back behind the church at 3900 Pitt Street at the Green Awning. We'd love to have everybody who's wanting to write postcards.
Great, thanks. I'll also put in a plug for Justice and Beyond. They have very informative forums every Monday, almost without fail, I would say. And I always learn something when I go to them. So you can go to Justice and Beyond's website and sign up to get information about their forums.
Can I butt in on that, Esther? This is Lane. I just want to point out, if you'd like to see, just to get a sampling of some of our past and recent past forums, go to our YouTube channel. I don't know, Valerie, do you happen to have that link at hand? If not,
No,
I'll see if I can quickly throw it into chat.
Okay, thank you. We also on Facebook and YouTube channel. That's what she tell you. And also, Pastor Manning will tell them something about Just Being.
But we
Yeah,
also don't have a website really, so.
Thank you, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to also encourage everybody to pay their respects to Sybil Morial and the great work that she has accomplished in this city. And those services will be Sunday and Monday. And so, yeah, you can find that information, I'm sure, readily, but let's make sure that we pay our respects.
Thank you.
Okay,
Cynthia?
Esther, we also have
Cynthia's got it.
City Councilman Cynthia Lewis. Yes, ma'am. Miss Cynthia?
Maybe she's got to unmute.
Cynthia, can you unmute? Are you still there?
Okay.
I'm trying to
Good
unmute. Yes, thank you so much. I just wanted to share another event. There's been so much activity and people are very receptive, especially reaching out to our chair of OBDEC, Leslie Bowie, who's doing an outstanding job. But there will be a breast cancer awareness luncheon also this coming Saturday. And the organizer, Gloria Paul Johnson and Mary Lodge Evans, who are very grassroots, political, and community oriented, are welcoming voter registration, voter awareness. At the event, it's 50 Shades of Pink, wear your pink, and it's going to be at 12 noon at the Thrive Community Center, which is the church facility right behind Sidney Collier on Desire Parkway. If anyone is familiar with that beautiful building, right behind it, there's a wonderful community center. and it's at 3600 Desire Parkway. So 12 o'clock noon, Thrive Community Center, 3600 Desire Parkway, this Saturday, September 21st. And Leslie, I think Glory was going to try to reach you because I suggested that she should. And I thank you. I thank you for,
I
yes.
want to say that's all I have.
Okay, great.
That's all I have, Esther. I just want to thank everybody for let's stay connected so we can get this important information we out. If any one of us or all of our organization send you an email, if you cannot make it, please share with your network, because you know what they say. If you know what they say, we can speak it up or we can speak it down. So let's speak it out. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, have a good night.
See you
Good
soon.
night.
Okay, take care.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you,
Good
everybody.
night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night, everybody. Good job, Esther.
Thanks for coming, Clarice.
That was great. It worked out well.